Hey, it's Dean Legge. We're going to try to go live here and talk about the SEC's releasing of schedules. And yeah, there we are live. Of course, it has everything wrong on there and I can't update it. Let me try this right now again. Well, you know what? We're just going to stick with it. We are live, if you can't tell, and the Southeastern Conference is going to announce the season right now, who is playing who. So it's been a long time. Sure would be nice to have gotten this months ago, but I'm watching Darinoka right now, and hopefully Georgia's, well, I don't know how they're going to do this. So this could be all at once, or this could be, by the week. And I'm kind of planning for by the week, which is not an ideal way to do something. But hey, let's just see what we can do. So I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, let me know. I'm going to check this real quick to make sure that, yep, sounds like it's fine. Of course, they're going to delay. So Georgia's going to start with a trip to Arkansas, a game that, they certainly should win. You would think they would win that game. I've seen a line coming out already about that game where Georgia's almost a 3.5 touchdown favorite to win that game. So that's quite a bit right off the bat to play at Arkansas and have that kind of line. I mean, that's a lot. So let me change the name of this real quick. If you're watching, we're going to see what they do. I mean, I don't really know what the holdup here is. I mean, I've already been on here for 2 minutes with y'all wasting your time. And surely they're not going to go to commercial before they give us the bulk of these schedules. Oh, they're going to do it by the week. Well, no, we already know these. So they're just going to review right now the games that we already know. And Georgia playing at Arkansas. I mean, there's really no catchy game this first week. You look at this game, these weeks, and I've got the monitors over here, and Tennessee at South Carolina. Okay, but not a lot of great games so far on week one. You would like to see a better lineup than that. My suspicion is that the Mississippi State LSU or Alabama Missouri game will be on CBS. That's assuming the usual, what's the word? The usual rules that have been in place for years are going to be in place. I appreciate everybody watching and paying attention here. I'm trying to do my best to keep up with everything as it goes live. It's never an easy thing to do. Okay, they're going to do it by the week. So Georgia will play Auburn. Wow. So Auburn is going to come to Georgia on week 2. Fascinating. Wow. That is crazy. That is crazy. My immediate reaction is that is nuts. Then you got Texas A&M and Alabama, but that is one way to start a season. That's for sure. South Carolina at Florida, Ole Miss at Kentucky, LSU at Vandy, Missouri at Tennessee. Well, you've got a very good doubleheader there if you want it for A&M and Alabama, and then Georgia. Auburn coming to Georgia in week 2. That is, well, that's when that game was supposed to be played. October 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. That game. Yeah, it's just shocking. Week 2, you've got right off the bat, you've got a giant rivalry game. Auburn and Georgia, a test for both of these teams. Here's week 3. We're going to see Tennessee at Georgia. So this means to me that Florida, this is wrecking week right here. You've got Florida A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, Missouri, LSU, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. This is you got back-to-back weeks of really big games for Georgia, Tennessee and Auburn back-to-back. I do wonder what the football offices are thinking of playing 2 really critical games. It aggravates me, I have to say, that what I'm watching right now is so pixelated. I don't know if that's my cable provider or the SEC, but it's not good, fellas. Not good at all. I don't, Florida A&M, yeah, that's a big game. I mean, but you could go. I just look for TV. I would say Tennessee, Georgia would. Tennessee, Florida at A&M will probably be CBS. Georgia, Tennessee could be your noon or your prime time. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. That would be a prime time game because there are not other there's not other games. There's not other games. I'm getting so used to this. It's so bizarre. Here's week 4, Georgia at Alabama. So that would be October 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that is a rough stretch. That is a rough stretch. I'm going to tell you that right now. Auburn at Carolina, LSU at Florida, Georgia, Bama. There's your doubleheader right there for CBS. If the rules still exist, but that's 3. I mean, you get through that stretch, Arkansas, Auburn, Tennessee. I mean, they're going to play. They're going to have a bye week after this Alabama game because the week after that is Florida, I would imagine. So I'm suspecting a bye here for Georgia at week 5, and I'm suspecting a bye for the Gators at week 5. So that should lead you to a cocktail party on Halloween as usual. That would be my suspicion. Now, there are no rules. There are no rules in this whole deal. Auburn at Carolina, that's not bad either. And this should be Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee. So, yeah, Alabama's at Tennessee. Oh, no, so Georgia at Kentucky. They will not have a bye. This is a hard schedule at the beginning because you're going to see Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Carolina at the end of this schedule for Georgia. If Georgia can get through the start of this season with one loss, you're looking at a team that should win the East. Missouri at Florida. Alabama, Tennessee will be your game on TV. That's a tough start to Georgia's schedule. There's no question about that. I mean, at Arkansas should be a win. Auburn at home should be a win. Tennessee at home should be a win. To some degree, I'm looking at the brand names. Tennessee's not what they used to be. You play at Alabama. That's going to be a tough game. Then you follow that up the week later playing at Kentucky. The week before you're going to go all the way. So Georgia's going to travel unless they're not going to go with what has traditionally been, which is Georgia, Florida, the last week of October, first weekend of November. What if they stick that game at the end of the year? Here they are. Well, they're going to put Georgia, Florida at the end of the year. If you have a condo in Jacksonville the last week, you might want to cancel it because it is not this week. Georgia and Florida are both off for Halloween. Someone got a hold of this schedule. Well, they are announcing the schedule as we go here. LSU at Auburn, that's going to be interesting. It's not a great week here, week 6. Halloween weekend is not ideal. But Georgia's going to be off. So does that mean they play the Gators the next week? It should be. Georgia is going to probably close with South Carolina or Florida. But closing with Florida would be a fascinating build-up. And I'm not sure how you could pull that off. And that game's going to be in Jacksonville unless something has changed in the last 12 hours or something. That game is going to be in Jacksonville. I can't imagine that game would be in Athens. That would be breaking news as far as all this is concerned. They're going to take a break. This is not what I expected. I'll put it to you that way. And I appreciate everybody watching. I'm getting this as it goes. You still have some huge games. You still have Georgia, Florida. You still have Bama, LSU. You still have Auburn, Alabama to go. Only looking at Georgia's slate here, you should win at Arkansas. You should beat Auburn. You should beat Tennessee. At Alabama should be a loss. At Kentucky should be a win. And then you've got a bye, but what's screwing me up here are when these games are. You've got both Auburn and Tennessee right at the beginning of this thing. That is not, if back in the day when you would look at this schedule, you have Auburn, then Tennessee, and then Alabama 3 weeks in a row. I mean, those are three brand name games. And basically, you have the Gators left. I mean, from this schedule here, you still have to go to Missouri. So there's, and one issue too is Georgia, of course, only has 4 home games, and I'm assuming, and it would be shocking to see that game not in Jacksonville, because again, that would be new news. Now, if they move where the game is, and what the week of the game, that's not that big of a deal. But moving the game, that's not in the cards. Are they going to take a break? I get it, but that's a little bit annoying, I have to say. So just, again, I'll repeat, if you can get to the bye week with 1 loss, you're in good shape. I think I'm kind of just shocked by how jumbled. I mean, this is bizarre looking, how this schedule is right now. You're just not used to seeing a game that early, like that in the season. But, I think, first of all, before your bye, 3 of your away games are gone. You still have to deal with at Missouri, and you've still got to deal with at South Carolina. You've got the Florida game left, as well as the Alabama game is an away game. So you've still got, I'm missing 2 games. You still have to deal with all the Eastern teams. You got 3 Eastern games left, and you've got the Gators as well. So I'm not totally sure how they squeeze everything here at the end. The question is, how does this end? My suspicion is it will end in Columbia against South Carolina, but I'm not totally sure. Again, they've already announced 5 games, and we know that Georgia. We know the Western schools that Georgia is going to play. And they've already announced at Arkansas, Auburn, and Alabama. You still have to deal with, of course, Mississippi State. So the end of this season, to me, looks like it's, if you want to call it easier, I don't know. Look, if this Georgia team is truly a top 5, top 3, if you want to call it that, in these rankings now, if you want to be that, these games should be not that big of a deal. They will be a 3, 4, 7-point favorite against Auburn at home. They'll be a 14 to 17-point favorite against Tennessee. That you didn't have the Alabama game a little earlier is surprising, I guess. But Alabama, I say this a lot of times about Georgia, you can't play everybody. And they've got a brutal schedule this year. They're playing Georgia, Tennessee, of course, but they got to deal with Georgia, the best team in the East for the last few years. They're going to have to deal with LSU, Texas A&M, Auburn. They have a rough schedule, and we're going to have to see where Georgia plays Vanderbilt as well. So that's a home game for Georgia. You would think it would be. I think that this is the week that they're going to announce the Florida game, which is week 7, November 7th, and then you've got November 14th, and then you've got November 21st, and you roll on into. The question is, who are they going to play instead of Tech the week of Thanksgiving? It's just all of this. All this is so hard to process just for me. Having gone to SEC games forever and having covered the league for 20 years, this is strange. I'm not sure if it's as weird as going to Missouri was in 2012, but it's an odd lineup, and it is for y'all too. Look, at Arkansas to start a season, that's never happened for Georgia in their history. They played at Arkansas, but they're opening up at Arkansas. Obviously, a preparation game for the Auburn game. I don't know. It's just it really is. I'm not trying to be this way. And of course, I'm doing this as I watch. It is hard to process this, frankly. Okay, so you still have the Missouri game away, which is a monster. You got at South Carolina. Of course, you're going to play the Gators in Jacksonville. I'm assuming that will be November 7th, but I'm not sure because nothing is making sense right now. November 14th. I mean, Vanderbilt. Georgia's played Vanderbilt late. The Mississippi State game, it can't be the last game, so that might be the Thanksgiving game. But you got not as sexy a back end here, as they say, on this schedule. Not. I've seen more interesting back ends of games. I'm going to turn my air off. Y'all can hear it. It's so hot right now. And I think we're about to get rolling again. So they gave us 6 weeks. And I'm hopeful that they'll keep on rolling here. Georgia has not sent an email out yet about their schedule. So week 7 is Florida and Georgia. Okay, in Jacksonville. So that makes sense. that was getting a little dicey. So, in November, these are all very winnable games. At South Carolina, at Missouri, Vanderbilt at home, and then Mississippi State in Athens. Something someone said to me earlier today is that everyone's going to close up with 2 homes and 2 aways. That jives with what I'm seeing here with Georgia's schedule. Look, October 17th, that's obviously a CBS game. November 7th, the week after Halloween, that's clearly a CBS game. So I'm seeing possibilities of big name games, spaced out except at the end of the season. And maybe Georgia, by eating the A&M game last year at the end of the season, they did that for TV. Maybe they said, okay, we sacrificed last year. We're not eating a tough game at the end of this season. If you see November for Georgia, if they go undefeated from November on, they're going to win the East. I mean, they're not. I mean, they got to play the Gators. You got to deal with the Gators, and you got away at Missouri, which I hate personally. South Carolina, which is a rat trap. I mean, that's a tough game to deal with. They go to Missouri after the Florida game. That's a hell of a weekend. Alabama at LSU, Arkansas at Florida. Gators won't lose that game. Mississippi State host Auburn, Georgia at Mizzou, Vandy at Kentucky, Carolina at Ole Miss, Texas A&M at Tennessee. That's a solid, quality weekend of SEC football right there. And, you're going to get that Alabama-LSU game is going to be the CBS game. The question is, will it be at night or will they put Alabama-Georgia at night? And then, of course, I don't know what the rules are. There might not even be rules right now. I feel like there are no rules. But that is the traditional home of – that is actually a week after the traditional home of LSU Bama. So that's about right. I can't remember who was playing that mattered on October 34th or on Halloween. But it's not the Georgia and the Gators. So just still watching this, we're going to see how this goes. The SEC's calling it week 9. It's got to be probably a home game coming up here. My suspicion would be Mississippi State on November 21st, but let's just see and take it from there. Here we go. November 21st, State at Georgia. Is that what I just said? Very winnable game. So Georgia's going to end this season against South Carolina. I mean, that's pretty clear. That's what's going on. LSU, Arkansas, Kentucky at Alabama, Tennessee at Auburn, Florida at Vandy, Mississippi State at Georgia. That's not a bad weekend. It's not great. Ole Miss at Texas A&M and Mizzou at South Carolina. So, it's that you're gonna probably close. My suspicion is it will close at Carolina the week of December 5th, which is traditionally SEC championship game weekend. But we're just gonna have to see what this league does in their wild, sowing their oats here, being able to do whatever they want to do, and they're doing whatever they want to do. That's for sure. All right, here's week 10. Okay, so Georgia's at South Carolina for Thanksgiving week. That means they have to play. They will end the season against Vanderbilt at home, which is strange. But hey, look, for me, this is a great schedule. A little strange at the start, and right now I'm just updating on dogpost.com right now. I'd encourage you to go to the website. We'll have a lot more there about what's going on. But this is a schedule that's fine if you're Georgia. I've seen worse, more complicated schedules, I guess you could say, but just the shock of hosting Auburn that early in a season is the part that is so strange to get used to. And then, Tennessee coming right there, right after that. That's interesting. The game at Alabama, that's going to be the game of the season for both of those schools, and probably the game of the season in college football. As it stands right now, Notre Dame Clemson isn't exactly, nothing. So, I got to say it's fine. It just takes some getting used to. Not playing the Gators. Not playing the Gators when you thought there's going to be a lot of people scrambling now on the coast to get that right, and so the SEC is going to confirm Vanderbilt right now, and they do. But yeah, like at Missouri in November, oh man, that is not going to be fun. That's going to be cold. That is not going to be fun. But you get to, this is a totally manageable schedule. This is a schedule that, if you're Georgia and you look at it and you get to, certainly if you get past the Florida game with no losses, you're going to be playing in the SEC or with one loss, and it's not to the Gators. You're going to be where you need to be in terms of getting to the championship game. Very, very interesting look at this schedule. I wish they would sort of just throw it up for everyone all at once here. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm discombobulated here, but this is how it goes when you do things live. I have to publish to the website and to everyone out there in the world. It's a manageable schedule that Georgia can get around and deal with. They're going to bring on Herb Street and company. Good Lord. These hotels in Tuscaloosa are legit expensive. Yes, I am looking at them right now, and I am probably going to book. I'm not doing that. Yeah, I like it. It is definitely taking me some getting used to. I'm not gonna lie. But hey, this is a manageable schedule. Certainly, the front 4 games to me are challenging, and I think that's the part that if you're Georgia, you kind of want to watch it. You've got some legitimate foes there. You could lose to Auburn and Alabama to start this season. I'm not sure if that would be the end of your season, but you've got a beginning of this thing that's tricky. So they're calling November 28th Rivalry Weekend, which is an interesting way to describe Georgia and South Carolina. But hey, it's what it is, and they got it. They got it. You knew it was going to probably be South Carolina or Tennessee, just because the Gators and Georgia being there, that's hard to see. Let me just look. You look at Alabama's schedule. Will they survive this? They've got at Mizzou. They play A&M. And then they've got at Ole Miss. You host Georgia. You host A&M 2 weeks before. You're at Tennessee, Mississippi State. You're at LSU, Kentucky, Auburn. So they're going to play Auburn on Rivalry weekend. They're going to leave that the same. I guess that makes sense in many ways. They'll end their season in Arkansas. This is a perfectly manageable schedule for Alabama because they don't have any tough back-to-backs. See, to me, it just jumps out when you see Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, and, I got to get out of the mindset of thinking that Tennessee is what they once were, because they're not. And that's an important part to remember in all of this, is that, Tennessee ain't what they used to be, okay? And that should be, Arkansas for Georgia, Tennessee for Georgia, Kentucky, even though it's at Kentucky, Missouri State, USC, Vanderbilt. These are all games that Georgia should win, and win comfortably, I guess you could say. Auburn, that's going to be a fight. Alabama, obviously, that should be a loss. We'll just see. Florida, that should be a fight. This does give you an opportunity to build towards the Bama game, but it gives Bama the same capability, okay? You're not going into Tuscaloosa with a brand new quarterback at that stage. I think it's manageable. You look at Auburn. I think they're doing fine too. They host Kentucky. They go to Georgia. They host the Hogs. They play at South Carolina. They play at Ole Miss. They should at worst be 4-1. Then they host LSU, at State, host Tennessee, at Bama, and then host A&M. Now that end of the season, that is not easy for Auburn. And they're getting what they want from the league in the future about moving some of these games. They got popped. They got popped this season. To end and close like that, that's not an ideal situation to be in if you're Auburn. That's a tough game that's a tough close. Tennessee is not going to be. I don't think Tennessee's going to beat Auburn. They did the last time they played. I do not think Tennessee's going to beat Auburn. But to play Tennessee, then Bama, then A&M, Auburn, Bama's playing, I believe, Alabama plays, they play Kentucky the week before they play Auburn. I think you'd rather play them than Tennessee, but maybe I'm wrong there. But that's a tough end of the year for Auburn. If they can get to that game with Bama and it matters, then that means the A&M game will probably matter too. The winner of the LSU Bama game, though, earlier in the week or earlier in the year, will be the one that determines who goes to the West. I'm sticking with y'all here probably for a little bit longer, and I'm still just watching the screen. But look, again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but you see it, you digest it, you start looking at things. Who's got a situation that's better for them than others. So the championship game would be, for Georgia. The other thing to kind of consider here is if you handle your business and you basically go 5-1 through the first 7 weeks, which has a bye, then that gives you the capability, I don't want to say to breeze your way to the SEC championship game, but consider this, all right? You play the Gators, then you go to Missouri, brand new coach. You go to Mississippi State, you host Mississippi State, brand new coach. Play at South Carolina, a tough place to play, no question, for Georgia. But now the SEC has sent it out. And, this makes it so much easier. And, from the game after Florida on, is very manageable / you should win in blowouts. And then, you get a week off before the conference championship game. Now, Bama will in November will deal with LSU and Auburn. Auburn will deal with Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas A&M. LSU will deal with Bama, Texas A&M. That's really about it. And then if Texas A&M gets there, the Aggies will have dealt with. Now, see, Texas A&M's got a longer stretch. They play Arkansas, then Carolina, then Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, and Auburn. They close with LSU and Auburn. They're not going to survive those two games. They will lose one of those two games. They play on the road at Auburn. And they've not beaten LSU, I don't think, since they've come into the league. In September 26th, we already knew these games. I mean, it seems to me like you would open the national television with LSU hosting Mississippi State. October 3rd, Georgia Auburn is a huge game. That's going to be hard to ignore for television. You've got Texas A&M Alabama is probably the CBS game. I would imagine Georgia Auburn at night. October 10th, you've got Alabama at Ole Miss, Arkansas at Auburn, Florida A&M, Tennessee, Georgia. Those two will probably be the ones that get you sort of a national television audience. October 17th, clearly Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida. That's probably your doubleheader weekend. If you're going to have a doubleheader, that's your weekend to do it. Okay. October 25th, Bama, Tennessee should be your national game. Could you do a surprising team, Kentucky, Georgia, or South Carolina at LSU? Okay, maybe, but it doesn't seem like it. Halloween, Georgia's off. LSU Auburn should probably be the national game, you would think. And then, let's see, November 7th, Georgia, Florida for sure. That's not a great weekend. And then everyone starts playing again. November 14th, Bama at LSU. That's a huge game for sure. You have other quality games, or they look like they're quality. That would be Texas A&M, Tennessee. Anytime Georgia has to travel, that seems like a game that TV doesn't mind putting on. November 21st, not great. Just glancing at it, not great at all. You've got Kentucky at Bama, LSU at Arkansas, Tennessee at Auburn. That's fine. Florida at Vandy, State at Georgia, Ole Miss at A&M, and then Mizzou at Carolina. Not a great one. And then you've got rivalry week, which you've got the East and just doesn't make sense. So Bama, Auburn, Arkansas, Mizzou, those are normal. And then you've got Kentucky at Florida, Georgia at Carolina, LSU at A&M, in the Egg Bowl, and then you've got Tennessee, Vanderbilt. The rivalry week it makes sense for everybody except the 4 Eastern schools. You knew they were going to do that, and they did it. South Carolina can now call Georgia a rival and actually do it without laughing. December 5th, the closing week, not a lot of great, suspenseful games, but I noticed, and I don't know how I didn't see this, they stick the Gators and the Vols on the last weekend. Now, that is interesting because all the rest of these games are not great. Missouri at Mississippi State, no one cares. Ole Miss, LSU, people down there get high on that one. But Carolina at Kentucky, Vandy at Georgia, A&M at Auburn, that's solid. Alabama at Arkansas, So that last week is not great, what I would call great football. But hey, it's football, and that's the thing to remember about where we're at right now is that we are actually seeing football. And that's something that not that long ago I did not think we would see. I mean, 7 days ago, we didn't know what to think, and it was certainly stressful, and we still may not get there. That's totally possible, but for us at Dog Post, we are planning on a season. We are planning on a season that, if it's going to start, we're going to act like it's going to end. And, for us, that's all we can do. The schedule has been posted on Dog Post. I would go ahead and check that out if I were all of y'all. I don't know if I can put that in here. I'm not real good at this. Here, let me try to put that in this right now. Here we go. So, I think at first blush earlier during this thing, it was hard to process everything that was going on with everything that happened at the beginning of this season. But, this comes down to, I would say, 3 games, and you need to win 2 of 3 of them, and one of them is mandatory. But this is going to come down to a home game with Auburn, an away game with Bama, and then, Jacksonville. So it's really, I would say it's not anything new. It's not super new. You're going to have to perform in Jacksonville. And, today, with the Gators having a few of their receivers who are the word opt out hasn't been used yet, but there were some guys that didn't go to practice today, and I get that, but if those guys aren't going to play for the Gators, that's going to set them back for sure. And right now, Georgia would probably be a half a touchdown favorite, something like that. But this is manageable. It's totally manageable. There should really not be a lot of trepidation about going into Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. They're a good program. They're one of the top 5 programs in the country, just like Georgia. They both are going to be working through a lot of different stuff. It's a game that Georgia can win, for sure. I'm not a defeatist about these things. It's just a challenging game. And it's a challenging game for Alabama, too. Both of these teams are going to have to figure out what the deal is on their quarterback. Who is the quarterback? And, can you really expect that person to perform? Will there be multiple quarterbacks because of injury or coronavirus or whatever illness? We can't know what the future will hold, but we do know that, Georgia's quarterback situation, I would say, is a little better than Alabama's, but the apparatus at Alabama in terms of the offensive side of the ball is probably better than Georgia. The question is, in this 4-week span, how quick can you get ready for what you got to deal with? Because, by the way, you have 2 legit games that you're playing before the Bama game. You have to take Tennessee seriously. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. And then, Auburn, that's a game Georgia can lose. You know it like I do. So, you want to be naive about it, you can. But once you get to the Florida game, if you have one loss on the schedule and it's not to Florida, you have survived and you are going to Atlanta. If you don't have that, you're in trouble. Obviously, you're not going to win the league. So they've got to get to Florida with a loss, with one loss or fewer, and they will win the East. If they don't, if they've lost to Auburn, that's survivable. If you lose to Auburn and Alabama, I'm not sure Florida's going to lose, they're not going to lose 3 games. They might lose 2. But this is a schedule, you can live with. It is shocking as an old SECer to see some of these games just strangely played. Everybody, I'm sure, in Florida or on the Golden Isles is like, why didn't y'all just play that on Halloween? But there are no rules anymore, and whatever the rules were are gone now. So this reflects that, with the exception of rivalry weekend, and to some degree, whatever the LSU, Bama, and sort of Georgia, Florida. Years ago, Georgia and the Gators played the first weekend of November, and that was a slightly later in the year game. But now, there's no excuse for you dads not being there for Halloween this year. You can get all drunkle all you want to, but you're going out with the kids because there's no Georgia game that night. and it just just get used to that. So if you're Darth Vader or whatever, I don't know what y'all do, but that's going to be your deal. But Arkansas, Georgia's going to be a pretty massive favorite to win that game. The Tennessee game, the one game I think that if you're Georgia you should beware of is Kentucky. That's the week after Alabama. It's a week before bye, and the Gators. Mike Stoops has done a really good job of getting the Kentucky to be a solid program. They think they're good this year, and they very well could be. But that's a tricky game. They play physical and so forth. Now, that's a look at Kentucky. Kentucky plays at Tennessee the week before Georgia, so that's probably not ideal for them. Here are the Gators. They're at Ole Miss. I think that could have been an upset, but not in week one. Okay? Not in week one. Host Carolina, that's a winnable game. At A&M, you're probably going to lose at A&M or you're going to probably lose at A&M or home against LSU. You sweep both of those, you're legit. Okay? They'll probably lose one. Losing both, I don't know about that. Missouri, and then they're open. Then they play Georgia and Jacksonville, and then for them it becomes very manageable. They host the Hogs. They go to Nashville. That's going to be cold. They host Kentucky, and then they go up to Tennessee. That's going to be cold. Tennessee in December in the Smoky Mountains. No, thank you. No, thank you. I want zero part of that. And those Florida kids, that's going to be a tougher. The more I think about it, that's going to be a tough game for Florida, the Tennessee game. Because they will have played at home, with the exception of the Vanderbilt game, they will play warm weather the entire season except 2 of their last 3 games. That's going to be tricky for them. Because those guys, Florida doesn't... every year they play 5 SEC games in Florida. Okay? Every year. And then, of course, their 6th game is against Florida State. And then they usually have, 3 or 4 gimme games. So 10 of their games are almost always in Florida. Well, it's 80 degrees in November in Florida. You don't get much lower than 60. December 5th in Knoxville? Now, can the Vols get them? Is Tennessee going to be good enough to deal with that? I'm skeptical. Florida should win that game, okay? I don't care what the weather is, but 33-degree low. If that's a night game, that's the game you better watch for Florida. I don't see a lot of losses here. I no longer think that they will lose to Mississippi. Okay, Carolina cannot hang with them. They did last year, but they should not. A&M, they could lose. LSU, they could lose. They will not lose to Missouri. They probably will lose to Georgia. Arkansas, they will not lose. At Vanderbilt, no. Kentucky at home, and then at Tennessee. So they don't have quite as many, certain wins, but they're not, this is not a Florida team that they're going to have to show me a little bit more as well. They have work to do. Georgia has work to do. Everyone in this league has work to do. The top 4 teams, Georgia, Bama, this is not in order. Georgia, Bama, LSU, and the Gators, they all have work to do. LSU probably has the most work. I would say then Georgia, I guess, but they got a lot of answers, Georgia. Then the Gators, and then Alabama. But the top 3 there on work to do, they all got plenty to do, okay? But you look at that, Florida's not going to have 3 losses. They certainly could have 2. They probably will have 2, I would imagine. Alabama, to me, this sets up pretty well just looking at it immediately. I know we're live. I appreciate everybody being on here. If you want to do a super chat, that'd be great. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Bama at Missouri, easy win. You got A&M at home, a game they should win. If you're a top 3, top 4 team, you should handle a top 15 team in your place. Then they got a gimme game, Ole Miss. Then they host Georgia. That should be their toughest game. They go to Tennessee. That'll be a game for a half, maybe a little bit into the third. Mississippi State, that should be a win. Open before LSU, that's going to be a fight. It's at LSU. Bama should win that game, though, okay? They host Kentucky. Then they host Auburn. That's a tough stretch at the end there. Just looking at their November is a bye week at LSU, tough. Kentucky's going to fight you, all right? They're not going to beat Alabama. They're going to fight them, though. And then you've got the Auburn game. And then at Arkansas. These last weekend games are garbage. They're terrible. They are terrible. Auburn, just real quick, again for the Tigers, they've got losses on here. You know, Kentucky could beat them. I don't think they will. Kentucky could beat them. At Georgia, it's going to be tough. That should be a game that Georgia wins. It's probably a touchdown, so you're looking at like 70%, something like that to win. Arkansas, they should beat Carolina on the road. They should beat Ole Miss. You got to host LSU. That's tough. Bye week, then you got at State, that should be a win. You host Tennessee, that should be a win. Then they close with Bama and A&M. I mean, I'm seeing a loss to Georgia, LSU, Bama, and A&M. Now, they won't lose all of those. And the LSU and the A&M ones are the ones I'm least comfortable with. But again, with Georgia, back to Georgia, at Arkansas, you should beat Auburn at home. You should beat Tennessee at home. At Alabama, you should lose that game. We'll see, though. At Kentucky, you should win that game. But Kentucky's going to be a challenge, all right? Open, and then you beat the Gators, you're probably in Atlanta. Because the last 4 games at Mizzou, the worst part of that game is going to be flying to Missouri or driving. You know, that's not an ideal place to go travel to, okay? And then you've got Mississippi State at home. At South Carolina could be a little dicey, but probably not. And then Vanderbilt. Marty Jordan's asking about the revamped offense for Georgia. Today was the first practice day. I mean, if you're on Dog Post, DAWGPOST.com, then you know we've got you covered. I'm going to put a link in here to the site. You should be going there right now. If you've not already been there, you can listen to me and go to the site. Nothing wrong with that. And you can check it out afterwards. We've got a great deal, $2 right now for 2 months. That gets you almost through, what is today? 17th? That gets you to the Bama game for $2. And you get to talk to me all the time. I give my cell phone number out to subscribers. They text me. We talk on the board. These guys, they know what they're talking about. These guys are insiders. They know things. You want to be on Dog Post, okay? That's all I'm going to tell you. You want to be on Dog Post. I've been on here for almost an hour. I hadn't mentioned it yet. You know you should be there, and you should check it out. At minimum, you go there and sign up for the newsletter, all right? At minimum. But it's, you know, if this team is as good as they have the capability of being, they won't lose. If they play around like they did last year on offense, they could lose to Auburn, Alabama, Florida, maybe Kentucky. All right? Auburn, Bama, Kentucky, and the Gators. They could lose those games. I don't see it. I mean, but I think that they will be noticeably and markedly better on offense. I'm writing about that this coming week on the site. It's already written. There's just so much information right now. But that game is, you know, this team, let me just say this. This offense, as I continue to look at this schedule and study it and kind of goof around with it, the back-to-back Alabama to Kentucky is challenging for people like me. That's a lot of travel. And we still don't know our situation as it relates to travel. But you're going all the way to Arkansas. At least you get to start the season, and you're done with that. At Alabama, not the end of the world trip. You're used to going to Kentucky, but that's a long drive from Athens. You're used to going to Jacksonville, but that's almost as far as Kentucky. That's a long drive. At Missouri, you cannot drive that. You got to mask up and get on the plane, all right? That's a disaster zone right there. But you got to mask up. You cannot drive. I've driven that way too many times. No. At South Carolina, I mean, that's a day trip. So, you know, this offense, if Jamie Newman is the real deal, you're going to see Georgia really be a good team. If they struggle offensively, you can go to another quarterback because there are others to choose from. And last year, your choice was Stetson Bennett because Dwan Mathis was hurt. Well, Stetson's still here. Now you got Mathis. JT Daniels is not yet cleared, and you also have Carson Beck. There is some competition in the quarterback room, something Kirby talked about and something we wrote about. Okay? Here's Dennis asking, want to know what you think of an 8-2 season. That would be a disappointment. I'm not, that means you didn't win a big game. I mean, people are not going to view Auburn and Tennessee with the same thing as, Alabama and the Gators. You should split Alabama, Florida at minimum. And the game to win there is Florida, not Bama. Okay? The game to win there is Florida, or you're not going to get to the championship game. Now the question is, now that the college football playoff is moving forward, does the second place team in the SEC go to the championship? Go to the playoffs? Does the most impressive runner-up from the SEC conference divisions, whatever they're called, does that team go, or is it going to be the team that look? It's going to be all on the line. It's going to all be on the line against Auburn, Bama, and the Gators. Okay, all the rest of these games are winnable. The head coach is Kirby Smart. He's had some stinkers. The 2016 Vanderbilt game, okay, that was bad, I thought. But that was a long time ago. From that point forward, you have the loss to Texas, a legitimate team. They were not ready for that game and goofed around. You had the South Carolina game in 2019. That was an unexcusable loss. There's not a lot of those on his slate here, on his schedule, Kirby, from the last few years. He's got more ranked wins than almost anybody as a coach at Georgia. And he's going to have the opportunity to get rolling on more ranked games because he got Alabama and Auburn the first 4 weeks of the season. But if you're looking at 8-2, it's just a disappointing season. I'm sorry. They have only lost one regular season game in the last 3 years. So 17, 18, and 9. Yeah, they've lost a combined 3 regular season games in the last 3 years. And it's not out of the question that they would lose 2 games. Not out of the question at all. But if this is a matter of, is this disappointing or not? Well, yeah, it would be disappointing. And that would be a disaster to go 8-2 and lose the only big games you play. And then you're going to be, I don't know what the situation of bowl games is this year, but, we'll just see. This is a team that has a lot of weapons. Over here is the roster that I keep. Jamie Newman is legit. I'm just going to tell y'all that right now. I'm not going to go crazy on him. He's a legit quarterback. He's smart. That's the biggest thing for me. He has better physical capabilities than Jake Fromm. He's smart. They can run a different offense with him. Okay? I don't need to see him run in a bunch. This is the SEC. We don't need to see the guy getting killed. That's what you have running backs for. But you also have JT Daniels, who's not yet cleared. You have Mathis, you have Beck, you have Bennett. All right? You've got quarterbacks. That's not an issue. You'd like to see the running backs, maybe have more running backs. But if Zamir is what he has shown me in the past, not going to have a problem at running back. Okay? I always say Chris Milton. If Kendall Milton is what I've seen, you're not going to have a problem in the past. All right? Or in the run game. So you've got running backs. Cook, McIntosh, they've got running backs too. They don't have as many, and they don't have a home run hitter that like they did with Swift. But White is a special player. I want to see him come back and be what he was. I don't know if that, that's up to God and Zamir. Okay, receivers improved noticeably, I would say. Tight end improved noticeably, I would say. Offensive line, that's where you got some work to do. But you are changing the offense in a way that your offensive line might not have to be straight up power. And let's be honest, they did not perform last year the way that you would think. If they were doing that, with that said, though, you can't have a quarterback struggle the way that Jake Fromm did and have a real run game because they're just not going to take it seriously. And they didn't. I mean, George Pickens, that kid's a freak and can really play. I'm not even going to talk about the defense. You know about the defense. You do not need to hear me talk about the defense. They're loaded. They are like this is Alabama 2011 loaded on defense. They're good. And that's what they're going to go fight with. This is a totally manageable game situation. This is a totally good Georgia team. But y'all, look, either you win or you do not win. And this is about beating Alabama and beating the Gators. You're going to have to do it one way or the other. If you want to be a champion, you're going to have to do those things one way or the other. You're going to have to be the big boy on the block. If you're not going to do that, then you're not, then there's nothing really to talk about. But this is a program that has positioned itself to deal with the cold realities of the SEC. And so you're just getting a straight up 10-game schedule right now. They have built this thing. They have very good coaches. They have a good head coach who has proven that he can get a team to within a play of a national championship. They've got to put it all together. That's going to be the hard part. And they're going to have to do it with no, simple games. If you're looking backward, they have had one game a season where they've really struggled. Well, last year was more than one, but they've had one game a season lately where they played a game and lost. Maybe that they didn't play well. Okay, 17 Auburn, 18 LSU, certainly 19 Carolina, or they were upset, 19 Carolina. So playing well all the time is nearly impossible in sports. I can speak to that. In college, it's too hard to do. So you have to win when you don't play well. And this schedule provides the capability to do that. But in looking at this again, you're talking about a tough first 4-game stretch. Almost, I would say, a tough 5-game stretch at the beginning. Then you get a bye with a colossal showdown in Jacksonville with a season at the end where you can get yourself right. You got to go to Missouri. You got to go to Carolina. But you can get yourself right those last 4 games of the season. You got to survive to November 14th with one loss and it not being against the Gators. I know we have a huge audience now, but I can smell that dinner is done, and I appreciate everybody watching. Go to Dog Post right now. We'll see you on the website. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Make sure to click to subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.